The final nail in the financial solvency coffin of our country has been struck by today's Socialist Democrat Party, with the passing of what's to be a whopping $4.5 trillion spending bill that, for Democrats, is aimed to improve America's infrastructure. Now, ladies and gentlemen, this bill, this massive pile of money with an average cost of over $12,000 per living American, and that's man, woman, and child, will be the socialist straw that broke the camel's back. Today, I'll break down how Biden, Pelosi, and Schumer have collaborated with trusted conservatives in Congress who together bent over backward and stuck it to the American people, all to but assuredly bankrupt our nation. Please sit back. I'm about to bring the ugly. I'm Eric Wright, and you are listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast. While Democrats today are speaking of what $4.5 trillion will buy, I want you all listening today to know what $4.5 trillion looks like. Folks, the thickness of a single $1 bill measures about 0.0043 inches. So, if you stack 4.5 trillion $1 bills on top of one another, the distance is 305,397 miles. This is the distance between the Earth and the Moon, ladies and gentlemen. Another way, in area, 4.5 trillion $1 bills are near twice the size of the state of New Jersey. And the length of 4.5 trillion $1 bills would equal 4 trips from the Earth to the Moon. And finally, assuming it would take about 5 seconds for an American to spend $100 shopping, it would take 7,132 years, folks, to spend $4.5 trillion. This, ladies and gentlemen, is what $4.5 trillion looks like. Expanded Medicare as well as health care funding for dental, vision, and hearing. Free child care for the poor and free community college education initiatives, as well as transforming the country's energy system to address climate change and what liberals call the Green New Deal. But I want you to listen to some of the other amounts contained in this $4.5 trillion spending infrastructure plans, because there's two. How about $726 billion for universal pre-K, or $332 billion for affordable housing for the poor, $198 billion for clean and renewable energy initiatives for, wait for it, the Green New Deal, and $135 billion to reduce carbon emissions under the guise of reducing forest fires. Again, Green New Deal. $107 billion to fund immigration and re-implement and re-energize the Dreamers. $67 billion for low-income energy sources and greener materials, and $37 billion to electrify all federal vehicles, including those beautiful rides of the pathetic United States Postal Service. Folks, if all of this garbage and wasteful spending, the only legitimate funding is the proposed $18 billion to build and expand veteran services. Consequently, Congress has set aside just a fraction of money to support our nation's heroes and their mental and physical well-being compared to other areas. And that chaps my backside. Folks, this isn't a $4.5 trillion investment to improve transportation and business and commerce operations across our nation. No. It is a $4.5 trillion reinvestment into the pathetic patrons of today's Democratic Party and the pet projects that they have promised to continue their re-election campaigns across the country and for generations to come. Folks, $4.5 trillion is over a quarter of our nation's GDP. And for those of you listening, GDP, or gross domestic product, is how much in dollars a country produces in all finished products, goods, and services. And to put in perspective, $4.5 trillion is almost more than what Japan manufactures and sells in a given year. Japan, ladies and gentlemen, has the third highest GDP on the globe. Folks, this ought to scare the bejesus out of every single American. The fear is real, and the financial ruin ahead for these United States is right around the corner. But you know what? Do you know who conservatives really should be blaming? Isn't it so much Joe Biden and AOC and today's liberals who have not shied away from what they have planned to do? No. Instead, we need to criticize and publicly shame and ridicule the 19 Republican senators that made this devilish Democratic dream a reality. And we're talking about senators such as Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell of Kentucky, and North Carolina Senators Richard Burr and Thom Tillis, and wannabe Republicans Lisa Murkowski of Alaska and Susan Collins of Maine. And finally, Mitt Romney, who wouldn't know conservatism if it slapped him across the face. Folks, I'm all but sure that none of these 19 Republicans read the thousands of pages of legislation contained in either one of these infrastructure bills. For if they did, senators like Lisa Murkowski would have known that part of this legislation requires the selling of some of our country's domestic oil reserves. Ladies and gentlemen, Lisa Murkowski is the senator from Alaska, the second state only to Texas in oil and petroleum production. Katie barred the door, for if I'm a resident of the last frontier state, I would immediately call for her resignation and bring her forward for nothing short of treason. And for my senators here in my great state of North Carolina, that's Thom Tillis and Richard Burr, both of whom voted in support of this insane and asinine infrastructure bill, their days too are numbered. Thank the good Lord, Richard Burr is vacating his seat at the end of his term, and for Thom Tillis, he will no longer have the coattails of Donald Trump on his subsequent re-election that would send him back to D.C. We just have 5 more years of him. But folks, I am fired up, and you should be as well. Nothing but the total collapse of our country is ahead for us. Trump read the tea leaves, and the liberals cast him out. As true conservatives, we either dig in or prepare for Democratic-led destruction. The choice is yours, but time is running out. You have been listening to the Closet Conservative Podcast.